Okay, so let me introduce today's speaker, Dinara Kussain. Dinara Kussain is an expert in children's safety and family development. She graduated from Arizona State University, Sanford School for Family Dynamics with Masters of Science degree in Family and Human Development. She also has Master of Science degree in Mass Communications, and she's the founder of amansabi.kz resource on kids and safety in Kazakhstan. You can find her page on Instagram. And she has a solid portfolio of projects in children well-being, and she's an author of books in children development and parenting. In 2019, she was acknowledged as the Writer of the Year by the Step.com. So Dinara is a member of expert boards at the Ministry of Information and Social Development of the Republic of Kazakhstan and Alliance of Female Power of the Republic of Kazakhstan. And her research interests women in Kazakh media, women and re-traditionalization, domestic violence, modern family, children's safety, and development. So Dinara Kussain's recent book, Frankly About Motherhood, 30 Real Stories About Living with a Lunar Mother. Stigma gives a voice to Kazakh moms in single parent families. 30 Kazakh women talk about how they live, feel, and raise their children out of wedlock. So you can find the link as the following. So, dear Kussain, Dinara, please, you can start, I guess.
Okay, thank you very much, Almira. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining this meeting today, for devoting your time. I'm really thankful to GenCon organizers to give me this opportunity today to speak in front of you and to share with you some information and to present my book that's been published recently. My book, which can be, yes, it's been published in Russian language. In English language, it can be translated as Frankly About Motherhood, 30 Real Stories About Living with a Loner Mother Stigma. It's been published in electronic format in a few platforms, including Reader, Amazon, Ozon, Bookmate, and Google Books. In electronic, as an ebook, in electronic format, it is 282 pages long book. I would like to start my presentation with a Kazakh proverb. There is a Kazakh proverb saying, "Ayelдің 40 жаны бар." Woman has 40 souls, meaning that woman will always be fine no matter what. So I will say that women in Kazakhstan are really strong and enduring, but at the same time, I'm really sorry that they have to be such strong and enduring so often in order to be happy, in order to be successful, sometimes even just to survive. Why I have chosen this topic? Once, one friend and mine, we were having tea. She is a single mom. So, and her son reached that age when the kids start asking, where is my dad? Why doesn't he live with us? And so on. So she was talking about her experience. We also discussed how our friends, for another single moms, how they were coping with these issues when they also children were growing. So, and we actually came to the idea that there are so many single moms today in Kazakhstan around us, but at the same time, they're so invisible in society, so invisible in media. It's like they do not exist at all. So I thought that this is actually unfair and I have to do something about it. So this is how I came to the idea about writing this book. I thought that I want to cast a light to these moms and also to give them a public voice, because actually I believe they strongly deserve it. In Kazakh media, solo mamas often get described as, let's say, unhappy, poor, and recently also as a strong protest group. And this is actually is a biased claim, I'd say, because according to official statistics today, more than 500,000 of women in Kazakhstan are single moms. And certainly there are, of course, so certainly there are many of them who are happy, who are successful, and who does not go to streets and who does not make any street, who does not join to any of street protests. At the same time, every fifth household, again according to official statistics, every fifth household in this country is a mono parent family. And majority of these families are represented by single moms. So there are actually a lot of single moms in our country, as I said, but they are mostly invisible. So that became a central idea of my book, to break the stereotypes and show diversity in a solo mama's cohort. My characters, my heroines, there are different moms with different background. There are single women, there are divorced, widowed, women of different age, different culture and ethnicity, different religion, education, jobs, financial situation. So the only thing they all share in common is no husband or no permanent partner staying, living with them, sharing with them their house. I had 30 women who spoke their stories in this book. At the same time, I would say that I observed some similarities in the book. Of course, I cannot generalize again then my findings, but I thought that maybe that would be interesting also to hear what I have found while talking with my mom. So finding number one, permanent shortage of time, searching for them between kids, job, and housework. Even going to sick leave is a great privilege that they often cannot afford to themselves. Several moms, for example, repeated that the only wish they have is to sleep enough. And actually, it's been for a few years that they cannot afford it too. And this situation leads also to the second finding. Many single moms live in extended families, for example, with their parents. Grandparents basically deal with all housework and often with childcare, while moms they work as breadwinners, let's say, in these families. There are even situations when moms leave to another city to find a better job. Children live with grandparents only for a long time. Of course, it also leads to some difficulties in family hierarchy, I'd say, with decision making and also leadership in the family, because there is always a question: so who is the boss? So who is the leader, mom or granny? Finding number three, many moms reported that it's really hard to build a new relationship with men because many of them have concerns that new partner will mistreat their children or will discriminate it compared to, let's say, the biological one, if there is any. I have a few stories in the book. They described in details in my book. For example, one woman, she is divorced. She has been dating for 5 years with her boyfriend, and after 5 years, he decided to present her to his mom, let's say her potential mother-in-law, because he was already planning to propose to her. So this woman, let's say potential mother-in-law, she asked, and even I would say she didn't ask, she even stated, she said, okay, so you're gonna leave your son to your mom, right? After, if you will get married. This woman, she said, of course, no, I'm not gonna leave my son. And after that, that's it. So after a while, they broke up. They didn't marry, and after a while, this man married another woman. But the interesting thing is that it's been for several years. He has another family, but he's still been calling her. He wants seeing her. He wants to communicate with her. So they kind of friends still. So it's been several years from now. So misogyny is a trend. Is finding number 4, I would say. There are, again, a few stories, a few different examples in the book too about it. For example, a woman escapes from her abuser husband. They got divorced and she returns back to her parents' house. So her mom, as he feels ashamed of her daughter's divorce status, she prohibits her to sit with her married sister at one kitchen table. So every time when her sister comes to the parents' house with her family, this divorced woman has her dinner alone in her room. She doesn't join at the family kitchen table. Another example, again, woman after divorce, she comes back to her parents' house, and her parents tell everyone that their daughter came here to the city only temporarily, just for her child's treatment in the city clinic. So, of course, in both cases, these moms, they uh, did their best to find a job in another city and escape from this discrimination um, that was provided by their own families, by their own parents. So here are, I think, very bright examples of such situations. This is what we call in Kazakh language iyat, shame. This iyat that actually disrupt our families, I would say. And of course, bullying from mother-in-law or from sisters-in-law. There are certainly epic stories as well. In this book, I included a big discussion, very detailed discussion about definition of single moms. So in Russian languages, we use equivalent a term called mать одиночка, which can be translated actually in English not only as a single mom, but also as a loner mother. So мать-одиночка, that was an official category in Soviet time. Government put it after World War II to support women whose husband didn't return from war. Because as you may know, Soviet states, they lost about 12 million soldiers, 12 million like militaries, and also 14 million civilians. So in Kazakhstan, actually every second soldier didn't return home after war. So that's why there were big government social privileges and financial welfares to мать-одиночкас, to women with such status. In current times, there are no such social vulnerable category called мать-одиночка, but the term still exists in the language. So many women actually today find this term offensive and discriminating. And there is today a discussion in our society as well in social media, what kind of term will be more appropriate to use in Russian language and in Kazakh language as well. And I had a chapter where we discussed with moms about their attitude to lonely mother term, lonely mother phrase. There were actually different opinions. Some moms stayed very neutral and even regardless to this. Some moms said that they don't like this term and they don't like when people call them like that. I also interviewed moms about their concerns, about their feelings, what they're afraid to, what they're concerned about. So we talked a lot, for example, about self-discrimination and feeling of being guilty for not making it work. I mean, for not being able, let's say, to build a classical nuclear family. So they blame themselves very often. We also talked about lack of their children's exposure to so-called masculinity and masculine behavior and nurture. That was especially an issue for moms who are raising sons, because of course you know that there are more women today in primary education and childcare industry in general, even in children's sports. So overall, for example, if a child grows without a father in the family, so he does not meet men in general very often. So that's a problem, as moms say. We also talked about self-shame and about stigma of being called a loner mother, мать-одиночка, about their stigma, what they think about it. I'm currently right now working on a second edition of this book, and also I'm working on a translation of the manuscript into English language because I would like to try and maybe publish it in somewhere internationally. I would like to put more stories in the book, as well as include more expert interviews in gender topic. So there is also an announcement. So if any of you are interested at GenCon to share your knowledge, your expertise, maybe some of your research findings relevant to this topic, you're completely welcome. I would be very glad to meet with you, to talk with you about, and maybe put your interviews or maybe some piece of your information here at this book too. What else? I think I talked about, I think I covered everything I wanted, except, again, as I told you, that the book is divided into parts. So the first part, it includes different stories, personal stories of moms, where I wanted to show a diversity. So I wanted to talk about moms with different backgrounds and different stories. For example, there is a story about mom who has 3 children, and they have like 3 different biological fathers. And so she talks about her experience. There is another story about a woman who has a son whose biological father is African American. It's also a rare case in Kazakhstan, I would say. So her son basically is a African Kazakh, maybe we can call it like that. Yeah, so she also talks about her experience. She shares her experience. There is another story about mom who widowed, having 2 children. And after that, she started dating, and she had been dating for 10 years with a man whom she loves. And after 10 years, they decided also to have another child. But this man is married, he's still married, and he has another family. So now her daughter is 12. So basically, it's been 22 years, like as they are together and not together at the same time, and they're raising a daughter. So that's also, I think, that was a very interesting story of her that she was sharing with me also in this book. There was another story about a woman who did all together. So at the same time, she was a wife, she was a housewife, she was raising like 3 children. It's been 10 years they have been married, and during all the time, she was the only breadwinner in the family. And at the same, so her husband, he doesn't work at all these years, and at the same time, it's very patriarchic family at the same time. So it's also a very interesting experience of her and very interesting story sharing of her. And there is also another story about a woman who's been bullied about by her mother-in-law, and etc. In the second part of the book, I included different thematic interviews where, for example, I asked the same questions to each of mom, and I recorded different answers from them included there. So I asked about their feelings, about their thoughts. So this is what the second part is about. For example, they were sharing their thoughts and feelings about the future, about their relationships, and boyfriends, for example, if they have, or husbands, if they have. Um, they also talked and shared how they faced, let's say, pregnancy, how they made decisions on having a baby, especially if that was supposed to be a baby out of wedlock, and also how they told their family, and so on. So this is what the book about. I think I covered everything I wanted for today, so I am ready for all your comments and questions here. Thank you.
Thank you, Dinara. Such fascinating topics that are in your book. And I'm a bit I mean, I can't really get the full understanding of it because, of course, the book is in Russian. And so for me, it's a bit challenging, but hearing you speak about it, I think is really helpful. I'd like to start with one question for you. What do you feel was the most surprising finding for you as you were doing your research and then writing your book? What did you find most surprising or maybe most interesting from your interviews with these women?
Well, I would say the most fascinating finding, actually, it wasn't a great surprise for me. I kind of thought that would be like that, but it breaks again the stereotype. That's many of my moms, I mean, many of moms in this book at the same time, they were so happy. They lived so life balance. So I think sometimes even women in marriage are not as happy and life balanced as these women are. So that was a really amazing finding.
That's very interesting. Thank you. Other questions?
So I'm a little bit interested in some statistical data. So while doing the interview, have you drawn data like what was the main reason for divorce, about alimony? Like, does the divorce come from like historical reasons or financial problems or like polygamy? So what were the main reasons, like first, second, for the divorce? And like some statistical data, if you have like found such data.
Thank you, Almira. No, I haven't included any statistics and any research information regarding divorce issue. So, but the divorce per se, yes, of course, it's relevantly high in our society. So, for example, compared, let's say, even to Western countries, there is interesting situation in Kazakhstan today because the marriage rate is also really high, which actually demonstrates that people are very willing actually to get married. So it's not about ignoring marriage itself. But at the same time, so we Kazakhs marry a lot, but at the same time we get divorced also a lot. So here is the problem, what maybe kind of government and some NGOs and experts today trying to solve this puzzle. But if you're interested particularly in this topic, I know that it's been a few years that every year we have a national report, Kazakh families. So when there was a report, Kazakh families 2019, that it was a very interesting finding about divorce. For example, there was a question, what's the main reason for divorce? So most of respondents, that was a national survey, big national survey, most of respondents, over 60% of them, they responded that the main reason is intrusion of their relatives. So I think that's a demonstration it demonstrates a clash between old traditions when people used to live in extended families, and there was another family hierarchy, and the modern family, when we say like nuclear family, around the couple, right, around man and woman. So so if you are interested in that, I have some information, but it's not included in this book.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, sure.
Thank you. So your findings are really very interesting. I'm curious about how can you explain self-blame? You said that many of them are self-blaming, but at the same time, many of them are happy. I'm curious about how can we make sense of it, and also thinking about this example of where a mother was ashamed of her divorced daughter, at the same time knowing that she was escaping from an abusive husband. One could think that she should be happy, but at the same time she was ashamed. I mean, that's sort of about the questions that bothered me, and I'm curious about this.
Yes, thank you, Rosalia. During the first question, what you said, the happiness, and at the same time, what? I didn't get that.
They're self-blaming because they couldn't have a full family.
Yeah, I see that.
And is this self-blame, is it coming from them, or is it sort of a reaction of the social, or reflection of the social expectations, social certain standards?
Okay, so when we talked about, thank you very much for your question. I think I got it. Regarding your first question, regarding how can they be happy at the same time single, when we talked about what the happiness is, how do they feel? Do they feel themselves happy and balanced? So they were talking that, for example, any relationship in the couple, even let it be a marriage or another form of relationship. So it's kind of like equilibrium, right? So so there are like benefits, at the same time there are some obligations. So it's always you're trying to find equilibrium in a couple. So they were saying that today, having no obligation in front of anyone except for their kid, they're really happy. So, for example, this some woman who got divorced, they said, when I was in a marriage, I actually spent a lot of time for housework, for making my husband happy, for thinking about his career, not mine, for putting him first. For example, if that was a traditional family, right? And said, now I'm just about myself and my kid. Some of them were really well educated, having a good job. So said, I'm traveling, I'm doing what I want to do. So this is what real happiness is. So that was some examples that they provided. And regarding the second question, like you said about her mom and Seamus, yes. So as I told you, there is even a special chapter about this.
Sorry, Dinara, like the first question, I was more curious about these women who you think they're happy, but at the same time, where does this self-blame comes? So I was thinking about this interaction, being happy on the one hand, but at the same time, blaming oneself for not having the full family.
Oh, I see. That was actually that were different women. So I mean, when I said like finding, so it's some similarities that I've seen through some of them, but some of them, not of course 100% of them was saying we are happy. Of course, some women still they think, as I told you, they make self-blaming. So it's like different moms.
Mm-hmm.
It's also really dependent that what I've seen on the family background. For example, women who are coming from very traditional families, from some traditional areas, so they used to have like more self-blame for themselves because that was their family's position. First of all,
Mm-hmm.
they've been raised in a very patriarchal society, and they still felt this pressure. For example, this woman, as I told you, who had like 3 kids and with 3 different biological fathers, she was even saying that her father, so this children's granddad, right? Her father and her own sibling brother, they still don't know about the child number 3 because her mom said not to tell them because it will be so shame that you are out of wedlock and you already having your 3rd child coming out of wedlock. So she was, for example, living in Almaty, and her family, I mean her parents, they were living in Shymkent. And when I was preparing to getting published this book, I asked them maybe something changed because it's been already a few months after that. She said, no, they still don't know about my 3rd child. So this is, for example, one of the examples.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And regarding the second question about a mother who
escaped
who
from abuser.
Yeah.
Well, yes. So that was that's actually yes. So that was the solution for her to escape to another city where nobody knows her and to start new life over. Because again, so she was also coming from southern Kazakhstan region, very traditional, where everyone knows everyone and everyone talks about everyone. So she said that she felt herself discriminated, but at the same time, she said, I know because my parents also feel discriminated themselves. Sorry, because all the neighbors will talk about me that I got divorced, and that's a bad sign and bad reputation for the whole family. So she some kind of even felt responsible for her parents' bad feelings. So she chose just to escape from that too.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rosalia.
Do we have other questions for Dinara?
I have one more. Actually, I have a lot of questions. This is so interesting. But my general question is, are these women, or maybe like women at large are doing something to change those social norms, the social um, expectations, the social. I mean, is there any movement or any talk in the either in the media or in the that would challenge those norms that are abusive actually of them or discriminatory or which do not allow them to, I mean, this concept of riyad, which does not allow them to live the way they want to live, like what, for example, they um, at, to marry at the age they want to marry, not exactly right at the early age or at the after the university, to have the number of children they want to have, to progress with the academic career or any other sorts of careers. I mean, is there any like movement to challenge those norms and the social expectations, and sometimes even maybe go against the voices in their families, extended families or immediate families?
Yes, sure. For example, I really like I would say, I really like the story about the mom who I said she has a son whose biological father is, let's say, African American. That's a really strong woman. She is coming also from rural area in southern Kazakhstan, and I think not only her motherhood, but probably all her life is a big challenge, and is a big, I would say, even victory over all these social norms. And I think that her interview is very inspirational. But when I asked her, where do you get your, let's say, your strengths from? Yes, where do you get your motivation actually to struggle, to fight? She said, because I had a big international exposure. So she used to think in international organizations. That helped me a lot because I saw different examples. I saw very successful women who single moms, never get married. At the same time, they were successful, happy, and balanced. That helped me a lot. And she also, by her personal example, and she's very active, I mean, she's socially active. So she also gives advices and provides recommendations and she's an inspiration herself to many single moms, I would say, today in Kazakhstan, and even just to many women in Kazakhstan.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rosalia.
Dinara, what is the time frame for your interviews? Like how recent were these interviews done? Just to kind of help us understand if these are how modern of stories
Yes.
these are.
Sure. I started taking the interviews in the end of 2019, like in November, October. And then during pandemic last year, I continued doing it. And I started in 2019. It was personal meetings, but then I mostly switched, most of them I switched to online sessions due to pandemic situation. But it worked actually very well. Some of moms, they were just writing to me. Some of them were even sending me some audio messages over WhatsApp messengers. And that was actually also really good. It's almost like interview, you know, you ask questions and then you get the answer all the time. Yeah, so it was like different formats. And I started at the same time I started working on them. And yes, so it's pretty recent.
That's really helpful, I think, to know that these stories that you were talking about related to shame and bullying, that those are modern stories, right? These are not things that happened 20, 30 years ago in Kazakhstan, but that currently, modern day, there's a divorced woman who cannot sit at the same table as her sister because she's divorced. And so just that this is a common narrative or norm in modern families. It's not historical information. So I think it's important to remember that.
I myself, I have heard for the first time for such a case. I don't think it gets often, but at the same time, it happens because I mean, we basically get the evidence from this mom.
Right. I think it's one example, like you have. It's one example of shame, of the way that shame is being acted upon, right? So the others are, as you've already mentioned, not telling about additional children or that they're just coming for, they're not wanting to work in the same city because they don't want that shame to be reflected on their families. And so just that recognition of the significance of that and the way that it plays out in culture. So my husband does some work in studying honor and shame. And there's a significant difference in the way that that is in Western cultures and more Eastern cultures, and Kazakhstan included. And so to see that coming out here it's always fascinating to me, because as an American, it is not a strong part of my cultural background. And so when I see that in another culture, it's shocking and surprising to me. But it's important that these findings are made known, because it is a driving force in culture that we need to understand better. So yeah, to me, that's a fascinating part of your discoveries.
Yeah, right, Jennifer. Because in Kazakhstan, I would say that it's not just a shame as a shame per se, but it's shame, of course, related and going around dignity. So they are too close. And after dignity, it's about reputation of the whole family.
Absolutely,
As
absolutely. So
they
they're all
about this
intertwined.
reputation again.
Right. Well,
Because
if you think about it,
in their mind, so sometimes.
exactly. If you think about it, and again, at weddings, right? Akjol is celebrated, right? The white way, the purity. This is the honor way, and so of course, then the other kind of opposite decision would be the shameful way. So it's, to me, it's just kind of this all cultures have these, but you're discovering and uncovering some of those here within the Kazakh culture.
Yeah, right. And my point was, but at the same time, as I told in the beginning of our meeting, that today every fifth household in this country is a mono-parent family at the same time. There are a lot of single moms, but they still face this, feels the shame, feels yad, and feels all these obstacles.
Great. Are there other questions? I know Dinara said that there
Can
are
I ask a
ways to
short
get in touch.
question?
Please, Rosalia.
Did you have an idea, or have you ever interviewed men about mono parenting and about single mothers?
I did not interview men.
It would be
Yes,
very interesting to know their opinions.
Yeah. Because the idea was to show moms, because I wanted to give a tribute to single moms in Kazakhstan. That was a central idea of my book. But in the beginning, at the foreword of the book, I asked, there's a psychologist that I respect a lot, Yerjan Murzabayev. So he's a male. So he wrote from his perspective a foreword to this book. So you can find it in the book as well. So he there shares his thoughts about modern motherhood and single motherhood in Kazakhstan.
Thank you.
I just want to add my point of view regarding, as I come from Uzbekistan, which is very different and cultural. I've just checked the number of divorce in Kazakhstan and neighboring country Uzbekistan. So the number is too high in Kazakhstan. That's because of the women are stronger and more emancipated here. So they can demand their rights and they can stand for themselves. But in the south, like in Uzbekistan, not only in some parts, but in the whole country, they solidify gender conservatism. So they just, they are silenced and they have to bear. So that's why the number of divorce is very less. So it means that Kazakhs in this sense might be more successful, that for them it's normal, because in my husband's relatives I know 3 people who are single mothers, and they are okay. So because this is the northern part, right? So I have no idea about those in the south, but in northern, the people around me, for them, so we are communicating with them, it's okay, so there are no problems with them. But sometimes I imagine that if they were in Uzbekistan, the people would have blamed them. So in comparing, so anyways, the situation is quite good because women are really emancipated because of the history and nomadic background, where women enjoyed more freedom, I guess, compared to neighboring sedentary people. I mean, women, where they were like less emancipated. So anyways, you guys are like, in this sense, are very lucky that women have more rights. Could I explain my point of view that in Uzbekistan, even they want, they cannot do that because they are bothered about the opinion of people around them. That's why maybe the number of divorces is very less in comparison to Kazakhstan.
Thank you very much, Almira, for your point and actually for the compliment. But I would say that Kazakh women are not so free and emancipated as as I wish them to be. And I would say that situation with gender inequality again is growing every year in Kazakhstan. So it's actually, we actually can see the deterioration of situation even according to international indicators. And now we are going through retraditionalization of the society as well. And you can be also, you can witness these processes as well.
Yeah.
So there are also some alarming indicators today in our country too.
Yes, thank you, Dinara and Almira, for that thought. These are all fascinating comments and excellent conversation. Dinara, thank you so much for sharing with us today. I think you have provided us with your contact information, so if anyone would like to get in touch with you, we can share that information with them.
Yes, please.
Wonderful. Before we wrap up, I just want to share a couple of things just before we wrap up here. If you are interested and would like to get involved, there are a few ways that you can do that. Feel free to share your thoughts about this event or other events. Here is our email address. You can also join our mailing list at our website if you would like. We're always open for new topics, new event ideas, speakers. If you know of someone, please send them our way. We would be very happy to have them join us. And then we will probably also share a post-event survey with you just to ask your feedback from everybody joining us today. Don't forget about our next talk. Rosalia will be our next speaker. And so we have that scheduled for April 21st on Wednesday. We'll share all this additional information with everyone, but we look forward to hearing from you, Rosalia, and your research coming up in our next Gen Con research talk. So thank you, everyone. We are going to do one last picture of everyone. So if you want to be in the picture,